Okay, shall we get started as well?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Okay, thank you everyone for joining us. So we're going to be doing a session on photogrammetry. So we'll take you through, tell you a little bit more information about what photogrammetry is and how we use it in archaeology. And then we'll get started on actually doing the process and take you through how to take the pictures, how to use the software that you've got, and then hopefully we'll end up with a few good 3D models at the end that you can share with us. So we'll just do a couple of introductions first. So my name's Beth. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator here at Wessex Archaeology. So that means my job is to go into schools, go to events and things like that and teach people about archaeology basically. So yeah, that's what I do. And then Isabel, if you introduce yourself.
Yeah, hello, I'm Isabel and I work in the geomatics team at Wessex Archaeology. So I deal with all of the survey data that is taken by the field teams out on site, and as well as that we also work with processing 3D models and laser scanning and all kind of technical things like that to do with archaeological landscapes and artefacts. Okay, so let me just okay, so do you want me to go through this bit, Beth? Yeah, okay, so photogrammetry, for those that don't know, is basically where we create 3D models from photographs or videos, and this can be of objects, so artifacts, or of landscapes as well, so it can be done on both small and large scales. And really you can make a 3D model of anything really, so it could be a really tiny brooch or artifact to a large scale landscape with lots of archaeological features, an archaeological site for instance. And one of the reasons it's so useful in archaeology is that it enables us to be able to see objects and landscapes in so much detail, so quite a lot more detail than you'd see from a photograph, for example. Obviously the model's 3D, so you can spin the model around, you can zoom in, you can look at things in a lot of detail, and it just provides another record of artifacts and landscapes, buildings, we've done it on boats, anything really. So it's really, really useful in archaeology, because one of the things that we do, certainly in the commercial archaeological sector, is to record and have a good record of archaeological features and archaeological sites. And so using photogrammetry is a great way to be able to have a lasting record of that archaeological site or artifacts from that site, basically. And it can complement the drawings that we do on site, it can complement photos, it can complement drone footage, and yeah, so it can work with a lot of other methods as well. And it's been used quite a lot recently. It's quite a new-ish technique, and it's something that we use quite a lot at Wessex. So yeah.
Would you say that we do it on every site, or?
No, so we don't do it on every site. It kind of depends. For example, if there's some really quite unusual features on a site, or if there's something that we feel like would be good for a 3D model, for example. I mean, this will come up later in the presentation, but we've been doing a lot of work at Bath Abbey recently, and we've been doing photogrammetry there to be able to model the interior of the abbey during the course of the excavation. And that means that we can, as the excavation goes on, we can build up a picture of what the interior of the abbey looks like, so that eventually when the excavation's finished, we can actually have a complete picture of the inside of the abbey, which would be brilliant. We also use it a lot for recording burials and cemetery sites as well. So it's quite quick. It's quite a quick process to do on site, taking photographs, and it's often quite a lot quicker than we used to do kind of quite detailed drawings of cemetery sites and of individual graves and things, and that still happens to an extent, but we use photogrammetry as well to complement that, and it's a lot quicker on site, and it means that actually we have a really good final product as well, which is really accurate, both in terms of the detail and also being a measured survey as well, because that's another thing that we can kind of do. We can tie in the models with satellite data, GPS data, to actually be able to locate them spatially as well, and that's quite important as well, so that we know where everything is in space and not just sort of floating around.
Yes.
Okay, right. Okay, so yeah, shall I?
Hopefully this video should work. So this is drone footage of one of our sites. It's a quarry site. So we've started using drones a lot for the same sort of reason, the recording the site and everything. So we'll show you footage of the drone, and then we'll show you the 3D model that we've made from the footage as well in a minute. So we'll just let you watch this.
Okay.
And then this is the sort of 3D model that's been made from it. So with this, you can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can move it around, everything that you'll be able to do with the 3D models that you make at the end of the session. You can see how helpful it is to be able to see a site from sort of a bird's eye view as well, because you can see everything in context instead of standing and trying to figure out where everything is. It really helps being able to see it all from above, and you can see how everything connects together. Okay, so this is another example of some of the uses of photogrammetry. So this is at Bath Abbey. So the sort of white section that you can see sort of at the top is the kind of current floor level. And then you can see as we've excavated downwards, you can see everything that we've uncovered. So it's a really good way of seeing the sort of side view as well. Again, so you can see how everything connects together. If you go on to the next slide. There we go. So you can see some of the burials. So as Isabel said, we often do photogrammetry of burials, and in Bath Abbey we found quite a few. So you can see here how they all connect together again. So while we're excavating, you might only be excavating 2 of these at the same time, but throughout the kind of years that we're there, because we're taking photogrammetry of them all, we're recording everything, recording all the levels, you can figure out what came before what was after, and what was the earliest and everything like that. So it gives you a completely different perspective of the site than when you just kind of go and visit it one time. Okay, and then in the post-excavation process, it kind of really helps to figure out everything and figure out the levels of the site and when everything happened, what connects together and everything like that. And then did you know a little bit about this as well?
Yeah, so this was one of the, I think it was a couple of years ago or a year ago, that you can commonly boat docked. I don't know where it was docked actually. And yeah, this was a combination of photogrammetry and laser scanning. So that's one of the other benefits of doing photogrammetry, is that it can be tied in quite nicely with other similar photographic methods for 3D modelling. And yeah, as you can see, we managed to get some really detailed images, so of both the ship overall, but also focused in on the deck and the sides of the ship as well. And so yeah, it really enabled us to get a really detailed overall view, and with the 3D model as well, obviously you can zoom in and see all the detail, which was really handy as well. So this was quite a big project, and yeah, it was good to be part of. But combined with the laser scanning as well, that is another method that was used here. So yeah, yeah. And then these are some. So obviously the boat and the quarry site that we showed you earlier, they're examples of large-scale photogrammetry. And these are examples of slightly smaller scale photogrammetry, and this is kind of more similar to what we'll be doing with you today. So these are some of the small finds that were found on one of the recent excavations, and doing photogrammetry on a small scale is really useful as well, because we can again see the detail. And also in cases like this, we also work quite closely with, for example, the graphics department, and they often use the models and the 3D images that we create to enhance their work as well. So they used a lot of the models when they were doing reconstructions of these small finds and things like that. So we can work in conjunction with other departments as well to produce final kind of images and reports and things like that.
Yeah, we can also use them to create 3D prints as well, and I've got some here, so I'll show you some of those later so we can see the kind of final products as well. Cool. Okay, so I think at this stage, before we move on, we will just ask the poll questions. Just to mention as well, so here at Wessex Archaeology, we use the software called Agisoft. Agisoft Photoscan, is it, Isabel?
Yeah, Agisoft Photoscan. Yeah, it used to be called Metashape, if anyone heard of it before, but yeah, it's now Agisoft.
So we use Agisoft, but because you need a paid license to use that, that's why we suggested the 3DF Zephyr, I believe it's pronounced, because they do a free version. But both me and Isabel have tried out both versions, and they're pretty similar. So the workflow and the process of doing everything will be basically the same as what we do here.
Yeah.
So we'll just put the poll up, which should be up now, so you can vote. There's two options for you to vote there. So we're just interested if anyone's done photogrammetry before or any experience in making digital 3D models or anything like that. If anyone's got any questions so far as well, do feel free to use the chat function and ask us. Okay, it looks like most people have voted. So we've got 78% of you haven't done anything like this before. So hopefully we'll be able to take you through everything today. And for those of you that have, it'd be interesting to know what software you've used before and what kind of objects you've done it on. So if you want to let us know in the chat function again about how you've done it before, that'd be really interesting. So we'll end that. And then if we go on to the second one, so if you read the sort of handout that we published before the session, we suggested using 3DF Zephyr, like I said, if you're using a laptop, and we also gave the suggestion of using Scan 3D if you're doing that just on your phone. So if you could let us know which piece of software you're using, because then we can adjust kind of the guide that we tell you as we're going, and we can adjust what we're saying.
Yeah, I guess if you've got the option of using either, then probably use 3D Zephyr on your laptop probably would be the best thing to do if you've got the option of both, but it doesn't matter if not, but yeah.
Yeah, so with both you still have to physically take the pictures, which will take you through how to take the best pictures and everything. It's just that on the phone, it kind of skips a few stages for you, so you don't see everything. But as we're doing the process, I'll be sharing everything on the screen, so even if you're doing it on your phone, you'll still see all the stages that we're doing. So again, it looks like most people are using 3DF. Cool, okay, that's good. Okay, and a couple of you using the phone app, so we'll give you some suggestions for that as well, because we've both used that before as well, so we'll be able to, if you've got any problems with it, just let us know. Cool, okay, so this is the first stage of photogrammetry. So you need to start with your object. You might have read the kind of suggestions of the type of object to find as well. So although we kind of do it for a lot of different things here, to start off with when you're kind of doing your first couple of models, something relatively small is good, so you don't end up taking loads and loads of photos, and something with a kind of matte textured surface, just because if it's really shiny then it can kind of mess with the lighting settings, and it can get a bit difficult. So if you've got something kind of rough, like I've been kind of playing around with this piece of pottery, so you can see the surface is really rough and textured and it's not going to kind of reflect any light. So like tennis ball kind of surface would be quite good. But obviously it just depends what you've got in your house, so anything that you could find that's quite small and quite rough would be ideal. So what we're going to do, I'll switch my camera to this one here and I'll show you how to take the pictures. So if I just swap that over, there we go. You can see this in the background. This is a 3D print, it's not a real skull, but I'll show you that later. So this is the object that I'm using. It's an oyster shell. I've used it before to make the models and it works quite well, which is why I'm using that today. You can see I've got like a black tablecloth. It's actually black velvet, but it's basically a tablecloth. So kind of good contrast between the object and the background, just to make it a bit easier to kind of pick up. But if you've got any kind of tablecloth or just a plain surface that you can put your object on, that would be really, really good. The other thing to take into account is the lighting. So in here we've got lights on the ceiling, so I've just got the two in this room that are above me, so that the light's shining directly down on the object. If you've got lights on the wall behind you, just be careful when you're taking the pictures, because you might end up causing a shadow over the object and it could mess up the lighting settings a little bit. But you can kind of play around with it as you're going. There's also a couple of windows over here and I've just shut the blinds, so it's not, if it's going kind of cloudy then sunny then cloudy, that can kind of mess with it a little bit as well. So if you've got any bright windows next to you, it might be worth kind of closing the curtains a little bit as well. So what you need to do, Isabel, if you just put the presentation up again so you can see the...
I can do that. Hang on. Oh. Yeah.
So on there you can see the blue squares, blue rectangles, are the positions of where the photos were taken from. So you can see this sort of, it goes in like circles around the object. So you want to get all corners of the object, and you want to make sure that the photos overlap slightly as well. So what happens is all of the pictures will get kind of stitched together, and if there's any gaps where you've not taken a photo, you might end up with a little hole in the final product. So you want to make sure you're overlapping slightly. And with things like this as well, it's good if you kind of do photos going kind of down, like directly facing it. So I'm just using my phone. You don't need a kind of high spec camera or anything like that. So if you see kind of my phone is on the table, so I'm getting a kind of horizontal view of the object, and then move around and take the pictures. And then what I do is lift the phone up a little bit, so it's kind of going down as well. And then again, do the same thing, go around in a circle. Hopefully that makes sense.
You have sort of overlap of probably about 60% between each photo, if that makes sense, because yeah, the program needs to be able to tie the photos together. So yeah, you kind of want to have quite a bit of overlap between your photos, so that you don't have any gaps, like Beth said. But it is limited to 50 photos, isn't it, the Zephyr? So yeah, just don't take 50 basically.
So with Agisoft, because like I said, we have a paid license for it, so we can take as many photos as we like. But because today we're using the free version of 3ds, we do have a limit of 50 photos. I'll take you through. If you end up taking kind of 60, it's fine, I'll show you how to remove them. But for now, if you just try and kind of take as many as you can that overlap, also make sure they're in focus as well. So if you need to kind of wait for your camera to focus and then take the picture, that's fine. It doesn't matter if it takes a little bit longer, we want the good pictures, rather than doing it kind of really quickly and not getting the best pictures. So if you all start taking your pictures now, you might have started taking them already, but if you start taking them now, and I'll take a few as well, so you can kind of see what I'm doing. So like I said, I'm starting with my camera kind of on the table. I'll take a picture and then show you on the camera. So you can see I've tried to get the object is taking up as much of the picture as possible. So if you end up taking pictures, just take another one to show you. So if you take pictures like this, where the object's really, really small, it'll be a lot more difficult to pick up the detail on it. So you want to make sure that the object, sorry, takes up as much of the picture as possible. So you can see there that the object is the kind of main part of the photo. And you can also see the lighting difference. So with that, you can see, I don't know if you can see it on the camera that well, but there's quite a lot of detail there. It's really good focus. Whereas in that one, because the lights are quite bright, it's kind of made it all look white, which it isn't. So you need to make sure that you're getting the good lighting in there as well. Any tips as well?
Yeah, so sorry, I was just answering a question. If you just kind of need to, it doesn't matter if some of the photos are really bright or have too much light, as long as you've got enough other photos of that area, then the model will account for that, if you see what I mean. So every photo doesn't need to be, perfect. You just need to have enough photos that you can either disable that photo, or the model will just use the parts of that photo that are in focus or that aren't kind of washed out to do that, really. So I think it's a balance really between taking enough photos and not having too many photos, especially yeah it's kind of a balance, but yeah. Sorry, I'm just
remember as well, if this is your first time, it doesn't need to be perfect. I remember when I first started doing this last year, I did like 5 models to start with. They were just awful. So it definitely takes a little bit of practice to kind of get used to how to do it.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. And you might find that actually when you run it, you might have a gap, but that's fine, because then you'll know, okay, well, for next time I know that I need to take a few more photos around that area. And if you have got an object, that's probably another thing to say actually, if you have got an object which has, say, got a really detailed part of it with lots of intricate details, it might be worth just taking a few extra close-up photos of that as well, just to kind of make sure that we get as much detail as possible, really, because whereas a flat surface, obviously you'll probably be all right with a couple of photos on a flat surface. If you've got a surface which is quite textured, as Beth was saying, and is quite detailed, it'll probably need a few more photos to be able to pick up all of those details in the 3D model as well. So that's just something to bear in mind as well.
Okay, sorry, I just muted myself. We've had a question about using it on a Mac. It's only on Windows, so the other options are to use the phone app that we recommended, or was it MeshLab that could work on a Mac?
So MeshLab is where you can view the models. You can try Regard 3D, you could try that one. That's similar sort of process. So maybe give that one a go. Yeah, I know some of them are only for Windows, unfortunately. But try looking at Regard 3D, because that's another freeware, and that might work on Mac. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, give it a go.
For now though, feel free to use the phone app. So if you're using Scan 3D, you've probably already started taking the pictures, but on Scan 3D, it kind of helps you out a little bit. So you take the first picture and it will come up with loads of like dots on the image. And then when you move it, when you're in the right place for the next one, all the dots go green. So if the dots are red, then you need to move around a little bit to get it in the right place. And then as they go green, you can take a picture and then do that in the process. So it kind of gives you a bit of help while you're taking the pictures.
Yeah, we've had another question about the underside of an object. So yeah, so unless you can kind of go underneath, I guess it depends what you've got your object on. If you've got it on, say, like a cake stand that you can swivel, or you've got it on a table, you can obviously go round, but the point is you don't really want to move the object as you're taking the photos. So unfortunately you won't be able to get photos of the underside of the model, but what the object, but what the model will do is it can map the underside of the object based on the other photos, if that makes sense. It can kind of get the textures of it. Not if you can't see it at all, then it won't be able to get it. But say, for example, if we're doing a grave, it can kind of map the bottom of the grave from the bits that it can see. But yeah, I would just take your photos. Say you've got your object on a flat surface, I would just take them around like that, and then yeah, it will kind of work it out from there, basically.
Yeah, so that is something that we can do, but for an hour-long session where a lot of people haven't done anything like this before, we're trying to keep it simple for now. Yeah, so the other thing I should have mentioned is you want to make sure you're moving around the object rather than moving the object itself. There is a way to do it like that, which I'll show you later. But for now, it's just easier for you to move around the object rather than trying to move it. We'll explain that later. So once you finish taking your pictures, if you put in the chat like done or just an X or something, just so we know a few people have finished, and then we'll move on to the next bit.
So I guess as well, when you're taking the photos, I know a lot of you have taken them, but you have to kind of think about the process in which you're taking them and the kind of step-by-step way in which you're taking them. And I guess, so when we do it on site, for example, we have quite a strict methodology of how we take the photos, and a sort of a process for taking them, a step-by-step process, so that ensures that we kind of don't miss anything, and that we get kind of the right amount of photos, because ultimately I think we need to kind of take, like I said earlier, we take enough photos, but we don't want to take loads and loads and loads of photos, because when we're processing, it can take quite a long time if you've got lots of photos. So you kind of need to sort of be quite methodological in the way you take the photos, so that you can ensure you're taking enough with enough coverage, basically, as well.
Okay, we're getting a few people finishing off. I think if we move on to the next stage, just because I'm a bit aware of the time, because we've already passed half past. So now if you can transfer your images from the phone or camera that you've used onto your laptop. So the thing that I found with 3DF as well is if you try and upload the photos to the software directly from your phone, it really doesn't like it. So you have to do that middle process of putting the pictures on your laptop, and then we'll take them from the laptop to your model in 3DF. If anyone has any problems with getting the photos to their laptop, let us know. So there's a few different ways you can do it. If you have the cable you use to charge it, that's probably the best way. But you could probably also do it by Bluetooth if your phone and your laptop both support Bluetooth. Other than that, do you know of any other ways?
Maybe Dropbox, if you've got something similar like that on your phone, or Google Photos, something where you can kind of upload them on your phone and then log on to the computer, something, yeah, something like that, or via Bluetooth, depending on what kind of software you've got. Yeah.
So Scan3D is for Android, but there are plenty of other apps out there as well. So there's one called Clone, which is, I've not tried it myself, but is apparently quite good. There's also, if I find the page that I was on, Scandy Pro is quite good as well. The only thing with the phone apps is a lot of them ask you to take a video rather than pictures. So it ends up being a similar kind of process. It's just different to what we're doing today, which is why we didn't suggest them. But obviously, feel free if you want to try different ones out. Now you kind of know how to do it. Feel free to try them out and send us the results of them as well. Let us know how they're going.
Yeah, I guess with some of the phone apps, the process of actually creating the model is quite automated. So it's slightly different to using a software that's based on the laptop like Zephyr, because you can kind of work through the work stages, whereas the phone ones, yeah, it tends to be kind of quite automated. So it kind of just depends what you what kind of looking to gain out of it, really, whether you're sort of wanting a 3D model or whether you're kind of wanting to learn more about the process of it as well. But it's good to see the different options as well, really.
Yeah, definitely, because you might prefer one to the other as well. It's completely kind of dependent on what you want out of it. Should we move on to the next bit then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you can see on the presentation now, this is the next stage. So if you just go back a slide as well.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I keep losing. There we go.
There we go. Okay. So you can see all of the kind of points there that are kind of starting to make up the object. So that is the sparse point cloud. So it's taken all of the points from the photos that it's identified as kind of part of the object. And then if you go on to the next one, and then what we want to do next is the dense cloud. So that's the picture on the right there. So you can see that the image is starting to build up a bit better. So what I'll do, if I start sharing my screen, and then I'll show you how to do the next stage. So bear with me. Okay, so hopefully you can all see the 3DF Zephyr on my computer. So what we want to do, if you go into workflow at the top here, basically you're just kind of following the stages in the workflow. So if we go on to new project, we have found a slight issue with 3ds here in that some laptop screens are too kind of short for the program. So what I'll do is just show you what all of the dialog boxes say, but if you just press enter when I tell you to, even if you can't see what it says, it'll still work, I promise. I've tried it out. So this is what you get when you want to start a new project. Basically, because we're just kind of initially telling you how to do the process, we won't touch any of the settings or anything. But if you go onto their website, they have a bunch of tutorials. So if you're interested in kind of playing around with the settings and trying different stuff out, if you head onto their website, they've got loads of different like videos and stuff for you to watch. So you can start kind of playing around with the objects as well. But for now, if we just press next, or if you can't see it, if you just click enter, this is where we want to add the photos. So if you click on the plus button here, find the folder that you've saved your pictures into. I'm going to use this one that I've done before because I know it works well and it comes out with a good model. So what I'm going to do is just highlight all of these. So what I'm doing here is clicking on the first picture that I want, pressing shift on my keyboard, and pressing the end one, and that'll highlight all of them. And then we click on open. And then up here you can see it says I've actually clicked on 69 images. And if you remember, we said that you can only use 50, so we need to get rid of a few here. So what you can do is if you have a look at your pictures, if there are any that are like really similar, that are basically the same angle, then you can just remove them because it doesn't need that much information. So if you just go through and remove the ones that look pretty similar. So for me, I know from doing this earlier, I've got, for some reason at the end, I took like 3 pictures that are basically the same. So I'm just going to take a few of these out. And then we'll just go through and take them off. So, and then if you click on one, if you want to remove a bunch at the same time, if you click on the one and then press Control on your keyboard and then click the other ones that you want to remove as well. And then you can remove them all together and you'll see the number change here. So we want to get this down to 50. If you've already only got 50 or you've got less than 50, that's absolutely fine. I'll just quickly sort this out. So I'm looking between, because I have another screen here that I've got the program on, and then on this screen here, I've got the pictures. So I'm just checking which ones that I can remove. If you've got any on there as well that you noticed are a bit blurry or the lighting's not very good, you can take them out as well. Okay, there we go. So I'm down to 50 now, which is perfect. So then if we just click on next, you should come up with this screen. So it's calibrated them all. So it's kind of checking all the pictures to make sure they're okay. Next. Again, these are things that you can play with if you want to, but for now we'll just kind of keep going with the default settings. So go on to next, and then you want to click this button at the top here which says run. So I'll just move that over. So you can see here some of it does take a little bit of time. So we've got some other things to show you as well, but is there anything you want to add at the moment as well?
Not overly. So yeah, this point is where the photos are kind of all being aligned, and basically the model is checking all the photos to see firstly if they're kind of usable, and then secondly it's trying to see if it can find overlaps between the photos. So you might get a few of your photos where they are either non-aligned or not calibrated, and if that happens, that's okay if that's a few, because it's probably just that the photos just aren't in enough focus, or there's not enough points to tie that particular image to another one. So that's fine. If you're finding that you've got a lot of photos which are not calibrated or not aligned, then you probably might need to do the process again, but just kind of see what happens. And if you get any major problems, just let us know, basically. Right, so shall I show a few of the Sketchfab?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have an account on Sketchfab, which is a website where you can share 3D models and images that you have. So we share various models that we've made from different sites and objects and things like that. So Isabel will just get it up now and show you a few. So feel free after this to go and have a look at them as well.
Yeah, so yeah, this is hold on a second.
Ooh, do you want to go on, if you go on the Anglo-Saxon workbox?
The what, sorry, say that again?
Go on to the third line down. Oh, was it gone?
Where was it?
Okay, go on to the there it is. There we go. So I actually have the object. So
let's have a look. What, sorry, I can't see what you're holding. Ah, lovely. This one.
Yeah.
There we go. That's nice. So just loading it now. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so you can see, so this page, basically this Sketchfab page, is just a page where we display some of our 3D models, and they're all kind of able to, everyone can sort of have a look at them, and it's just a nice way of kind of being able to explore some of the stuff that we've been working on. Yeah, and you can just see how much of the detail has been picked out here by the model, and you can just see kind of how useful that is to be able to see that amount of detail and to be able to move the object around. It's kind of like you have it physically, really. It's really useful.
So from making that 3D model, so the actual object, it's Anglo-Saxon, and when it came out of the ground, when it was excavated, it's actually kind of, the actual object is rusted, it's kind of fallen apart a little bit, and it was all kind of jammed together with dirt as well. And it's quite a cool object, so instead of trying to kind of clean it up or do anything to it that could possibly break it apart, we made the 3D model, we did the photogrammetry, but then the other thing that we were able to do is to 3D print it. So here you can see, this is how it comes out of the 3D printer. So you can see the sort of like framework that is printed with it. Can you see that? Yeah, you can see the kind of the framework here, and then you can see the actual object. So you kind of break this off. So you have the sort of plastic version. This is something else. Okay, it's the lighting a bit bad there.
It's quite bright, yeah. Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, that's better, yeah.
So you can see this is the kind of grey sort of plasticky thing that comes out of the 3D printer. This is a lion face from Bath Abbey. But then what we can do, we can either leave it like that, or what happened with this one is that we actually then produced it in metal. So this feels, sounds and looks exactly the same as the object would have done originally. So we can see that it fits together, it's sort of like a lid and a bottom, and then you can see the little chain that came with it. So we think that this possibly was to kind of hang it off a belt or something. We don't actually know what this is. This is one of these mystery objects. There's only about 90 of these found across the UK. They're always found buried with women, apart from one that was with a baby. And because there's so few of them, we don't actually know what they're for. But it's a really cool object. And you can see, again, the amount of detail here. And this is from using the process to get the 3D model that you can see on the screen there as well. Okay, so it looks like the photos have finished aligning on mine, so hopefully yours have finished as well. So I'll just go back to sharing my screen.
Yep.
Has it changed? Yeah, cool. So you can see on here, there's a bunch of green yeses, and there's quite a few, unfortunately, red no's. So this tells you which of the photos it's kind of accepted as good, basically. So if you have, so I've got, what does it say, 31 out of 50 have been oriented, so 31 out of my 50 are good pictures. That should probably still be fine. If you've got kind of less than half, you might want to redo the pictures, just because it might not be as good, the finished product. But you can still kind of go through the whole process with us, and then you know how to do it. So we'll just click finish, and this is what you kind of end up with. So you can see, so I did it on a grey background, so you can see this is the background here, and then this is the actual object. The points are quite far apart, there's a few gaps and stuff in there, so we want to try and fill these in if the pictures are good enough. So what we're going to do next is go back into workflow, and then if you go into advanced, so you can skip a few of these steps out, but we're just going to show you the whole kind of thing. So if you go to dense point cloud generation, and then I'll just move this so you can see it again. So we're just going to go next, and again we're going to leave everything the same as it is here, and then run. This should hopefully be a little bit quicker.
So the difference between, so the sparse point cloud is, yeah, where the software uses the photos to identify overlapping points between each of the photos, and then so that's what that point cloud was basically. And then the dense point cloud, which is what we're making now, it creates the depth for the model, so it kind of creates the sort of 3D element of the model, if that makes sense, and it uses the sparse point cloud, so the overlapping points in the photos, to create that depth basically. So what you should start seeing is something which looks more like your object as opposed to a series of points basically. That's kind of what this stage is all about in terms of the process. Yeah.
When I did this earlier, it had more than 30 pictures accepted, so I must have deleted some of the good ones and kept some of the not so good ones, but we'll see how it turns out. But do you want to go back onto
Sketchfab? So yeah, so this is the Wessex Archaeology one, but we also have Wessex Archaeology student one as well. So this has some more kind of small finds. This kind of be done by students doing work experience. Is that right, Beth?
Yeah, so some of them are from work experience, and then some of them, we were at Llandudno in North Wales earlier this year, and we actually did this workshop in person, and these are a few examples of what the kids that attended that workshop came up with. So you can see, you know, you don't have to be, it doesn't have to be your job, like Isabel, like you can do this even if it is your first time. So this is the first time that a lot of these kids had tried photogrammetry, and some of these models are really, really good. Yeah,
no, they're really good. And I think as well, it just kind of shows you, obviously there's a few different things, but if you look at the Sketchfab pages, you can kind of see the range of objects that photogrammetry can be used on as well. And yeah, it's quite applicable to many different things really. So yeah, it's worth having a look on our pages just to kind of see. And so for example, obviously there's complete buildings on here, there's floor surfaces, there's small find objects, stone details, yeah, anything and everything really. So yeah, it's worth a look.
Do you want to just go on the chalk block, the First World War one at the top?
This one?
Yeah. So the other good thing about this is, I'll just switch over again to the other camera. So this that Isabel is showing you now is a 3D model of a piece of chalk, actually. You can see the 3D printer in here. So this was found when we were excavating near Salisbury. A lot of the land here is flint and chalk, and we accidentally found some underground tunnels. And it turned out that these tunnels were used for World War I training for the soldiers. And all of these names that you can see on here and on the Sketchfab screen are the names of some of the soldiers that trained there. But if you imagine us actually having a piece of chalk, it would have fallen apart by now with the amount of times that we show it to people. So doing 3D models and things like this means that we have a lasting record of these things. So we can show this to as many people as we like, because it's never going to change the actual object. And you can do exactly what Isabel's doing now. You can zoom in, you can have a look at all the detail in there. And it just means that it's a lot easier to show people and share with people, which is kind of the point of my job, really, is to share what we find with the public and with you guys. So yeah, that's one of the really good benefits of photogrammetry, is that we can share it so much more than the actual object sometimes. Okay, looks like I'm pretty much finished here. Do you mind if I start sharing my screen again?
Yeah, that's fine.
If you haven't got your laptop plugged in, you might want to plug it in, because this does use a little bit of battery. And if it started making loud noises, don't worry, because mine has too. It's just because it takes up a lot of the power of the laptop. But it'll be fine. So we should be getting there in a minute. We're nearly at 3 o'clock actually. We're running out of time a little bit. So what we'll do, while this is just finishing off, if we do the next poll, just to see what you think of it. Oh, here we go, it's finalising. Okay, we'll just wait for this to finish and then we'll do the next poll. And then we'll try and finish off as quickly as we can. If you have any questions about this whole process, or you've had bits that haven't made sense to you or haven't worked for you, please do get in touch with us, and we can give you some hints and tips, and we can try and help you out a little bit, because it is really cool. Once you actually do it, it is really, really great, and you can do it with as many objects as you like, and you can kind of start playing with it a little bit. So this is finished. So here we go, you can see the object is looking a lot more like an actual object now, rather than a lot of points. And you can see, so with mine here, you can see a lot of the background here, which it is possible to get rid of. But again, that's something that we won't address at this point, just because we're running out of time a little bit. So if you want to go back to the presentation, and we'll do the next couple of stages. Yeah, cool. So you can see, yeah, there we go. So this is the next stage. So it's building a mesh. Do you want to quickly explain what that is?
Yeah. So the mesh basically uses all of the information that from the points from the photos, if that makes sense. Oh, and it fills in the gaps between all the points, and it picks up the texture of the 3D of the object, basically. So it's not flat anymore like it would be in a photo. It has that depth and dimension to it, basically. So that's what you can kind of see here in this photo here. You can kind of see it looks kind of like a wire mesh, if you see what I mean. And that is how the model knows how to create the surface of the object, basically, and it just kind of brings in everything together from the photos, if that makes sense. Yeah, so that's kind of the stage that we're at now, basically. Oh, Beth, I think you're muted.
Yes, I am. Sorry, when I'm typing, I turn it off, so it's not like random noises in the background. So I'll just go back to my screen. And so if we go back into workflow again, Like I said, it's you pretty much just follow the points in there. So we want to do the mesh extraction now. So click on that. There we go. So again, just next, keeping everything the same, and then run again. This bit is normally quite quick. So when we're doing this with back on Sketchfab, you saw there was like quite big areas that we do this of. This, when we're doing it of kind of landscapes or buildings or anything like that, this can take hours. This is the kind of thing where you kind of leave it to it and go and do something else.
Doing it,
yeah. So it's not always this quick. This is actually doing pretty well. Obviously, the bigger the object that you're doing, the longer it's going to take to process, and the more pictures you have as well. So if you remember, we're limited to only 50 pictures here. Whereas if we're on site and we've got hundreds of pictures, then it's obviously going to take a lot longer. While this is running, I'll just show you other options of how to do this. So if I stop sharing my screen with you and go back to the other camera. Back to the other one. So when I was doing the pictures that I'm processing now, you'll see the background grey on that. So what I did is I had the object on this sort of like a, okay, this is actually pottery to make pots and things on. But you can do it with anything that kind of spins, like a turntable or like a cake stand or something like that. If you have the object in the middle, this really helps if you have to have the object somewhere that you can't walk around it. So if you can see the little like sticker that I've got here, what I do is take a picture. It usually helps if you have like a nice clean background. They'll look the same, and try not to get anything kind of behind you here. What you do is take a picture, move it about a centimetre, take another picture, move it a centimetre until you get back to the beginning, and then move the camera up, like we were saying before, to have the images from kind of this angle and the images from kind of this angle. It's just a different way of doing it. Instead of you having to move, you can move the object, but the background needs to be exactly the same. So what you can get as well, again, is what I used to take these pictures. It's like a little light box. So we literally just got this off Amazon, and you plug it in and there's lights in here. So it makes the lighting a lot better. And then it comes with these like foam things. So you put this up so the background's all the same. So you don't have as many problems with the software picking up the background and kind of focusing on that rather than the object. So there's a few different options of how to do it. Obviously, if we're on site and doing this of a building or something in the ground like a burial, we have to move around it. We can't move the land. But this is just another option for doing it for artifacts and things like that. So if you've got anything in your house, like a cake stand or anything like that, you can always experiment with that. So either put like a little sticker here so you know where you start and where to finish, or the other option is to put like a tape measure, like the soft flexible ones around, and like stick it on so you can see how much you're moving it, because the risk with this is either moving it a tiny amount and ending up with way too many pictures, or you start here and you move it like a quarter turn without realising, and then you end up kind of missing it. So yeah, it's just another option for you to try out if you want to keep playing with this. If we go back to my screen again, hopefully we're all at the same stage. We'll just go back to, there we go. So it's finished, so finish. We'll zoom out a bit. So you can see, so on this one, I seem to have got rid of a few pictures that I needed to keep in. So the actual object is this. And you can see it's like missed a few bits here. So I must have got rid of a few pictures that covered that area, but you can see the difference between the last stage and this stage. And you can also see it's picked up a lot of the background as well. Like I said, we can get rid of that, but that's a later stage. And then the last bit, do you want to go back to the presentation and just quickly show? So the last stage, texture.
Yeah. So this stage is when all of the details from the photos are added to the mesh, if that makes sense. So you can see in Beth's one that the model does have some colour and it does have some texture there, but it's if you kind of zoom in on your model now, you can see it's slightly grainy, it's not very clear, it's a bit kind of like blurry as such. So this step just kind of adds those final details, and especially if you've got an area which you've taken quite a lot of photos of because it's got a particular detail that you've wanted to capture, you'll find that this is now when it starts to bring in all of those little smaller details basically, and it adds it to the mesh to create the texture basically as well. So, yeah.
Hopefully we're not making anyone feel a bit seasick with changing all these screens. So the last thing we want to do, we want to go back into workflow, and then we want so it's the textured mesh generation here. So as you can see what Isabel was saying, so there's like a little bit of texture here, you can see the line that's in the shell, but then up here it's still looks like it's kind of been blurred out a little bit. So that's where we want to start adding the final texture. So it's exactly the same again. You can see, like, if you don't kind of play with any of the settings, I just closed that accidentally, sorry. If you don't kind of mess with any of the settings, it can be quite a simple process. But like I said, if you want to kind of mess with the settings, if you want to make it higher definition or anything like that, you can. Again, we're just clicking next and then run. So this will be the last bit. So while we're waiting for this to finish off, which hopefully won't be too long, we'll just do the last poll, or almost the last poll, which is, do you think photogrammetry is a better method of recording artifacts than hand-drawn illustrations? And we'll discuss that in a little bit. But if you could just answer the question, just your initial kind of reaction to, do you think it's a better way of recording artifacts than hand drawing pictures? I'll leave this up for a little bit in case you're still processing the next stage. Okay, so almost everyone has voted and we've got 100% think yes, photogrammetry is better than hand-drawn illustrations. So yeah, in many ways it is better, but there are advantages to both. What do you think, Isabel? What do you think on
that? Yeah, I think there's kind of reasons for both, if you see what I mean. I certainly would say that using photogrammetry in conjunction with hand planning is good. I wouldn't say that you would want to do just hand planning and no photogrammetry, for example, because I think the two can complement each other. But certainly photogrammetry can just get a lot more of the finer details. It's a lot quicker. It doesn't kind of rely on someone's kind of drawing abilities as such, particularly if you're trying to get really fine details of a really detailed object, you know. It's quite easy to do in photogrammetry, and it can be quite difficult to do with hand drawing and things like that, really. Yeah, but I think they can often be used in conjunction. But certainly on the commercial sites that we do, we're tending to go more towards photogrammetry now, just because it's a lot quicker. And you know, if we've got a big cemetery site with lots and lots of burials, hand drawing all of those burials is going to be quite time consuming, and you know, the final result might not be quite as good as if we did photogrammetry on all of them. So yeah.
The other thing as well is with hand-drawn illustrations, especially if it's a smaller object, like a bit of flint or something like that, with hand drawing it, you kind of pay attention to the object a lot more than if you just kind of, because obviously the middle stage between this is just photographs. Photographs are great, they're brilliant, they record the object exactly as it is, but if you just take a picture and then move on, you're not necessarily kind of paying attention to the object and the kind of little things that you might miss. Whereas if you have to hand draw it, you have to look at it so closely to see everything. So especially with bits of flint and stuff, you might see jagged edges that can tell you how it's been used, or if it was kind of made that way on purpose, or if it's just been an accident or something like that. You can see a lot more, you kind of pay more attention to it. So there definitely are benefits to both. I guess with photogrammetry you are kind of looking at it a lot closer because you're taking so many more pictures. But I think there'll always be a place for hand-drawn illustrations. I don't think it's ever going to be something that we completely kind of forget about, really. So mine has just finished processing. Hopefully some of yours has as well. So we'll just press finish, and this is the finished product. So you can see the texture here is a lot better. Like I said, I've obviously got rid of a few pictures that I needed to keep, which is why this corner looks a little bit weird. But you can see even the this that I had the object on, you can see way more detail on that as well. So it has worked pretty well. But you can see as I zoom in, you can see so much more than you could see before. So this is the finished product. And I'll show you, for the person that was asking what it looks like underneath. I'm really not very good at manipulating these. But you can see this is the underneath here. So you kind of can see it because I'll show you the object again that I had. So this is the top that I was taking the pictures of, and then this is the bottom. So it kind of shows you the shape of the bottom. But yeah, it gets a bit more complicated than we can explain in a little over an hour in 50 pictures if you want to do the bottom as well. But like I said, there are a lot of tutorials on the 3DF website if you want to continue kind of trying this out and seeing what you can make with them. So before we finish, please make sure you save your object. We don't want anyone losing it after so long of going at it. So please save it. If you want to share it with us, you can find us on pretty much all social media. Do you want to go on to the next slide of the PowerPoint? So we're at Wessex Arch on pretty much everything. So like I said, you can go back onto Sketchfab and have a look at some more of our models on there, so you can see the landscapes and objects and things that we've got the models of. If you want to ask any questions, we're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, so feel free to message us on there and the questions will get passed to us. And if you've got any questions that you want to ask now, we'll still be on the chat, so we can answer any questions on there. The last thing to do before you go on to the next bit, so we just want to kind of find out what you thought of this. So if we go on to the next poll, there's just a couple of questions here that we'd like to ask you, just so you can get a bit of feedback, what you thought of it, if you enjoyed the session, if you learned anything from it. So if you just go back onto the poll and answer those questions, we'd really appreciate it. And when you exit the session on Zoom, there should be an evaluation survey that pops up for you. And if you could just answer that for us, we'd really appreciate that as well, just so we get a bit of feedback for the session. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm sorry my model isn't the best one to demonstrate with. I'm sure some of yours have turned out better. And yeah, I hope you kind of keep having a go at this and try it out a bit more. But yeah, we'll just give you a couple of minutes just to answer the questions. Everyone that's answered so far has learned something new, which is brilliant. Thank you.
You can always tweet your models, pictures of your models to us or anything like that. We'd like to see them. Obviously we can't see your screen, so yeah, it'd be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Share them with us. Tell us how how you thought it went, if you found it difficult or easy or anything like that. And yeah, even if you kind of have a go and next weekend you make a few more models, please do send them to us on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, because we'd love to see them. Oh, it's great to hear, Thomas. I'm glad to hear that you'll be practicing a bit more. Please do send us any of the stuff, like we said, so we can see what you're up to.
Sorry, I just realised that.
Okay, so I think most people have answered the polls. Yeah, so if you have a look in the chat, we'll be sharing the video later today on the CBA YouTube channel. So if you want to go back through and see what we were talking about or see the process of it, please feel free to go and watch that. Have a look at tutorials. Like I said, you can get in touch and ask any questions as well. We're happy to answer them. I know when I first started doing it, I had a lot of questions, especially when things started going wrong. If there's anything that you have like problems with, like lighting or anything like that, or you know your pictures weren't kind of being accepted in the program, let us know and we'll try and help as much as we can.